AITA for refusing to host my parents' anniversary party after they excluded me from planning. I, 34F, have always had a complicated relationship with my parents. They're loving in their own way, but they tend to be controlling and very traditional. Growing up, I often felt like my opinions didn't matter, and that has carried over into adulthood. I live in a different city now, about 3 hours away, and have built my own life with my husband, Tom, 36M, and our 2 kids, Ella, 7, and Sam, 5. My parents, Carol, 62F, and Richard, 65M, have been married for 40 years, and they recently told me they want to have a big celebration for their anniversary. At first, I was excited. They have done so much for me, and I thought this would be a way to give back. I even offered to host the party at my house, thinking it would be nice to have it somewhere that could accommodate everyone comfortably. I thought we could plan it together, pick the menu, invite friends and family, and make it a fun, collaborative event. However, things took a turn quickly. When I asked them for their ideas about guest lists, food, and timing, they both said that they had already made arrangements and that I didn't need to worry about any of that. I assumed that meant they had preferences, but I could still help with organizing and hosting. Then I realized they had booked a caterer, hired a DJ, reserved party rentals, and even sent out invitations without consulting me. The location they picked was in my city at a venue I had never visited, and the date was set for Saturday when I had already planned a weekend with my kids' extracurricular activities. I tried to discuss this with my parents. I explained that I wanted to be involved because I offered to host and that I thought it could be a joint effort. They dismissed me, saying things like, "We're old, we know what we want, and don't worry, everything is taken care of." I pointed out that since it was going to be at my house, or at least in my city, it made sense to coordinate with me on logistics, but they insisted I was overreacting. I also offered to help financially if needed, but they refused. Apparently, the party was already fully budgeted, and my contributions weren't necessary. I felt completely shut out. I asked whether it would be okay to have the party a little later in the day so I could manage my kids' schedules, and they said no. They had already finalized everything, and changing it would be inconvenient. At this point, I began to feel resentful. They had excluded me from planning, insisted I not get involved, and then implied that I should still host it and make sure everything runs smoothly. I mentioned that I wasn't comfortable hosting under these conditions because I had no say in the plans, and they got defensive, saying, "You're making this about yourself instead of about us." A week later, I formally told them that I wouldn't host the party at my house and that I didn't want to be responsible for managing the event since all decisions had been made without my input. My dad accused me of being selfish and ungrateful, and my mom said that I was ruining their special day. I tried to explain that it's not about them celebrating, but about me being expected to host something I had no control over. They said I was overreacting and that they were just trying to make things simple. Now, my extended family is involved, and I've heard from a few cousins that my parents are complaining that I'm being difficult and refusing to help. I feel stuck because I wanted to do something nice for my parents, but the way they've handled planning has left me with no agency. I don't want to be part of a situation where I am responsible for logistics, but have no ability to make decisions. I also worry about the long-term relationship with my parents. I love them, but this pattern where I try to contribute and they dismiss or override me has happened before. It's not just about this party, it's about feeling respected and acknowledged. I don't want to cause drama, but I also don't want to be put in a position where I feel like a servant in my own home. On the other hand, I recognize that my parents are older and might genuinely just want to enjoy their anniversary without any complications. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but the combination of being shut out and then being asked to host has made me feel frustrated and unappreciated. Tom has been supportive of my decision. He agrees that hosting a party I had no input on would likely be stressful and unpleasant. He suggested I could still attend and celebrate with the family, but I don't have to run the event. I've offered to help in smaller ways that don't involve hosting, like helping with decorations on the day or taking pictures, but they seem to interpret this as me not caring enough. So now I'm left questioning myself. Am I really being selfish for refusing to host a party that I had no part in planning? Or are my feelings of frustration and exclusion justified? I want to celebrate my parents and show them love, but I also don't want to be treated as though I have to execute everything they want without having any say. Has anyone experienced something similar where family expectations clash with personal boundaries? How do you navigate wanting to celebrate a loved one while also protecting your own autonomy? AITA for refusing to host my parents' anniversary party after they excluded me from planning and made it clear I would have no say in the arrangements. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious. When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering a huge secret about my family. I, 32F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were inseparable, and even as adults, we made it a point to keep in touch regularly despite living in different cities. My parents have always been supportive, though my dad can be a bit overbearing, and my mom tends to avoid conflict at all costs. Emily got engaged last year, and I was thrilled. She met her fiancé, Jason, 30M, through mutual friends, and from what I could see, they were genuinely happy together. As the wedding planning began, I offered to help in any way I could. I wasn't part of the bridal party, but I volunteered to assist with decorations, the guest list, and even catering options because I genuinely wanted to make the day special for her. A few weeks ago, Emily called me to ask for help with seating arrangements. While reviewing the list, I noticed a name I didn't recognize, Lisa Patterson. Curious, I asked Emily who she was. That's when she hesitated and eventually told me that Lisa is my half-sister. This revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. I had a half-sister. My parents had never mentioned her. I asked for more details, and Emily reluctantly explained that when I was very young, around 5 years old, my dad had a brief relationship before marrying my mom. Lisa was the daughter from that relationship. My parents decided to cut contact because the mother didn't want anything to do with them, and they assumed I was too young to understand. I felt a swirl of emotions: shock, betrayal, confusion. I confronted my parents immediately. My dad admitted the affair and explained the situation, but his tone was defensive. He said they had kept it from me to protect me from family drama, and that now it was too late to do anything about it. My mom cried, but essentially said the same thing, that it was complicated and she wanted to maintain peace. I couldn't believe that my entire life I had been kept in the dark about a sibling. I felt betrayed and angry. I started to question everything about my family dynamic. How could they keep something like this from me for over 20 years? Why had they never even hinted at it? My relationship with both of my parents immediately changed. I began to distance myself, not out of hatred, but out of a need to process this new reality. The problem escalated when Emily invited me to her wedding. She was excited to introduce Lisa as my half-sister and wanted me to play a significant role in welcoming her into the family. My initial reaction was disbelief. How could I celebrate with someone I had just discovered existed, while also pretending nothing had changed between me and my parents? I told Emily I needed time to process everything. She was hurt, but said she understood. Over the next few weeks, I tried to communicate with my parents, but they kept downplaying the situation. They insisted that Lisa was family now, and that I should accept her and move on. They were excited for the wedding and kept mentioning how important it would be for me to be there, not just for Emily, but for family unity. Their insistence only made me feel more pressured. I spoke with Lisa briefly after Emily introduced us over the phone. She seemed kind and excited to meet me, but I couldn't shake my resentment. This was a person who had been kept secret from me my whole life, and suddenly, everyone expected me to embrace her as a sister. It felt impossible. I wanted to know her, but the timing was so emotionally overwhelming that I couldn't imagine attending a wedding where I'd be expected to smile and act like everything was normal. After many sleepless nights, I finally made my decision. I told Emily that I would not be attending her wedding. I explained that I needed time to adjust to the new family dynamic and that showing up under the circumstances would be emotionally impossible for me. I also sent a heartfelt letter to Lisa, expressing my desire to get to know her in the future, but asking for patience as I navigated my feelings. The fallout has been intense. Emily is devastated. She accused me of being selfish and making her wedding about my feelings. My parents are furious and claim I am overreacting, saying that weddings are about family coming together and that my absence will hurt everyone. I've had friends tell me I should put my personal feelings aside for the sake of my sister's big day, but I genuinely don't think I could handle it emotionally. I feel guilty, but I also feel like my needs are valid. I've spent my entire life believing I was the only child, and now I'm expected to integrate a whole new sibling into my life immediately in front of a crowd while celebrating a major family event. It's a lot to ask of someone, especially when the family who betrayed your trust is asking you to just get over it. I haven't spoken to my parents since informing them, and Emily only messages me sporadically. Lisa seems understanding, but I can tell she's hurt too. I don't want to lose my family, but I also can't ignore how betrayed and overwhelmed I feel. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering I have a half-sister? Is my reaction unreasonable, or should I put my feelings aside for the sake of the wedding? AITA for confronting my brother about his parenting choices and potentially ruining our family dynamic? I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my younger brother, Alex, 28M. Growing up, we were close in some ways, but also had a lot of sibling rivalry, which I think is normal. Our parents always favored him in subtle ways, like praising him for things I did just as well, or making excuses for him when he acted out. That dynamic lingered into adulthood, though we generally got along. About 4 years ago, Alex had his first child, a son named Leo. At first, I was excited for him, despite knowing Alex's less-than-stellar track record for responsibility. He had always been impulsive and stubborn, often ignoring advice or instructions even about simple things. Over time, though, I started noticing patterns that worried me as a close family member. Alex's parenting style is very unconventional. He believes in minimal intervention and letting the child figure things out on their own, which in practice often means neglecting basic needs or refusing to seek medical attention for minor but important health issues. Leo had repeated ear infections that Alex insisted were just a phase and refused to take him to the doctor until I stepped in. He also rarely keeps a consistent routine, and meals and sleep are irregular. Alex's partner, Mia, 27F, often defers to him, though she seems stressed and anxious about his approach. The breaking point for me came during the last holiday season. Our extended family gathered at my parents' house for Christmas, and Alex and Mia brought Leo along. At one point, Leo, who is about 2 years old, fell and hit his head lightly on a hardwood floor. He started crying, but Alex brushed it off, saying it was fine and that kids need to learn resilience. I was furious because it was obvious the kid had a mild bump and needed comforting at the very least. I offered to hold him and check him, but Alex refused, insisting I was overreacting. Later that evening, I tried to have a calm conversation with him. I told Alex that his approach worried me and that I felt he was putting Leo at risk by not taking basic precautions. He got defensive immediately. He accused me of trying to control his parenting and of thinking I knew better than him. The argument escalated quickly, and I ended up saying things like, "Leo doesn't have the luxury of figuring things out while growing up. You need to protect him, and I can't just stand by and watch you make mistakes." Alex stormed out, and Mia stayed behind to try and calm things down. She later admitted she agreed with some of my concerns, but felt trapped in the middle because Alex never listens to her. The rest of the holiday was tense, and our parents tried to smooth things over, but the damage was done. Since that incident, Alex has been cold toward me. He won't answer my texts, and when we see each other at family gatherings, he avoids speaking to me directly. My parents are upset as well because they think I overstepped and should have kept the peace instead of confronting him. Meanwhile, I feel guilty for causing a rift, but also believe that what I did was necessary for Leo's safety. I've tried reaching out to Alex to apologize for the way I phrase things, but not for my concern, and he refuses to engage. Friends and colleagues are divided. Some say I did the right thing because a child's well-being comes first, even if it means family drama. Others say I should have been more diplomatic and handled it privately or through subtle support instead of confronting him directly. I'm torn because I never intended to attack Alex personally, just to express concern for his child. I'm also conflicted because I can't stop thinking about Leo. I visit him occasionally when Mia agrees, but Alex limits my access now, and it's heartbreaking. Part of me feels like I need to choose between staying in my brother's good graces or advocating for a child who has no voice. I've considered reporting neglect formally, but I'm hesitant because I'm not sure if I'm reading things too harshly or if I could make matters worse for Leo by escalating. Family holidays have become especially stressful. My parents hint that I need to let it go to preserve harmony, but I can't ignore the feeling that a child is at risk. I've tried writing letters to Alex explaining my concerns calmly, but he ignores them. At this point, our interactions are limited to brief pleasantries at a distance, and the tension affects everyone. I realize I may have approached the situation in a confrontational way, but I honestly don't know how to handle it better. I care deeply about my nephew, and the thought of him being hurt or neglected keeps me awake at night. At the same time, I don't want to permanently damage my relationship with my brother or create ongoing family conflict. I also worry that any formal intervention could backfire and make Alex even more resistant to advice or support. So, AITA for confronting my brother about his parenting choices, even though it led to tension and a strained relationship. Could I have done it in a way that protected the child while also preserving family harmony? Or was speaking up the right thing to do, no matter the consequences? I feel stuck between my responsibility to a child and my loyalty to my family, and I'm struggling to find the right path forward. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding after she blamed me for her ruined plans. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding after she blamed me for ruining her plans. I, 32F, have a complicated relationship with my older sister, Emily, 35F. We grew up in a fairly traditional household, and while we were close as kids, adulthood brought out a lot of tension between us. Emily has always been somewhat controlling and perfectionistic, and I've spent years learning to navigate that without losing myself. About 6 months ago, Emily announced she was getting married to her fiancé, Mark, 36M, and that they had decided on a destination wedding in Costa Rica. I was genuinely happy for her, though immediately I had practical concerns. Traveling abroad is expensive, especially for a week-long event, and I have a limited budget because of student loans and a mortgage. When I told her that attending might be financially difficult for me, she assured me she would help cover some of my travel costs. That was reassuring, so I began making tentative plans to attend. As the wedding date approached, Emily and Mark sent out a list of activities for guests, including a series of pre-wedding excursions, a welcome dinner, and multiple group events leading up to the ceremony. At first, I was excited, but then reality hit. The combined cost of flights, accommodations, group events, and miscellaneous expenses added up to almost double what I had originally anticipated. I reached out to Emily and explained my concerns honestly, mentioning that I could still attend if some of the costs were adjusted or if I could participate in fewer events. Her response was not what I expected. She accused me of being selfish and implied that if I couldn't spend this money for her wedding, it meant I didn't love her. She even sent me a detailed breakdown of what she considered my share of costs and concluded with a statement that made me pause. If you can't come, that's fine, but don't blame me for your choices ruining my perfect wedding plans. At this point, I felt cornered. On one hand, I wanted to support my sister and be present for such an important day. On the other, I couldn't afford the financial burden without seriously hurting my own stability. I tried negotiating further, suggesting I attend only the ceremony and skip the other events, but Emily refused. She insisted that attendance at the full series of events was part of the experience and that partial participation wasn't acceptable. After multiple tense exchanges, I decided I couldn't justify the expense. I wrote Emily a heartfelt message explaining that I loved her and wanted to celebrate from afar, but attending under these conditions will be financially irresponsible for me. I also offered to organize a small post-wedding celebration with family back home, where I could still honor her marriage without breaking my budget. Emily's reaction was immediate and intense. She accused me of being a terrible sister, claimed I had ruined months of planning, and suggested that my absence would embarrass her in front of other guests. She even threatened not to invite me to future family events. Our parents tried to mediate, but Emily was adamant. They were sympathetic to my financial situation, but also stressed that family loyalty was important and that Emily was hurt. Since then, things have been extremely strained. I haven't spoken to Emily directly since our last conversation, and family gatherings have been awkward. Some relatives have taken her side, expressing disappointment in me for not prioritizing family, while others understand my position and think Emily's expectations were unreasonable. I'm struggling with guilt because I do care about my sister and wanted to be there for her, but I also feel that her demands were financially and emotionally manipulative. I have friends who say I made the right choice to protect my own stability, but I keep questioning if I could have done something differently to avoid this conflict. The wedding came and went, and I stayed home. Emily posted pictures and videos of the event, and it looks like everything went well, but I can't shake the feeling that I'm now viewed as the bad sister. I want to maintain a relationship with Emily, but she has made it clear that she feels deeply wronged. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's destination wedding after she blamed me for her plans being ruined. I feel caught between financial reality and familial expectation, and I'm not sure if my decision makes me selfish or reasonable. For context, I am financially responsible and avoid debt. Attending would have put me in serious financial strain. Emily and I have had a history of tension, often stemming from her high expectations and controlling behavior. I try to compromise by attending only part of the wedding or participating from afar. Family dynamics are complicated, with some relatives siding with Emily and others understanding my perspective. I would like an honest assessment from an outside perspective. Am I genuinely in the wrong here, or was Emily's reaction unreasonable given my circumstances? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of family drama? I, 28F, have always had a complicated relationship with my family, particularly with my sister, Emily, 32F. Growing up, she was the golden child. Perfect grades, extracurriculars, and a social life that always seemed to outshine mine. Our parents, while loving, were often blind to my struggles because they were so focused on Emily's achievements. I tried to accept it, figuring I'd eventually carve out my own place in the family. But things have only gotten more complicated as we got older. Emily has always been controlling, though it used to manifest in seemingly small ways. She'd dictate what I wore when we were kids, criticize my choice of friends, and insist on taking the lead in family matters. As adults, it's escalated. She frequently sends passive-aggressive messages if I don't RSVP immediately to invitations, or she makes snide remarks about my life choices, like my career path, my decision to live in a smaller city, or my boyfriend, now fiancé, of 4 years. I've tried to set boundaries, but Emily interprets them as personal attacks and broadcasts to the family about how I refuse to participate in family life. The breaking point came last year when our parents decided to downsize and move closer to Emily. I offered to help them pack and organize, but Emily immediately inserted herself, insisting she would handle everything because I don't have the patience or skills to do it properly. When I gently protested, she made a huge scene, accusing me of being lazy and selfish in front of our parents. That night, our parents basically took her side, which left me feeling completely isolated. Fast forward to now, Emily got engaged last summer. From the very beginning, she made it clear that she wanted her wedding to be perfect, which in her mind meant everyone doing exactly what she said without question. She asked me to be a bridesmaid, and while I initially agreed, the planning process has been a nightmare. She demands that I buy an expensive dress that I don't like, attend all her bridal events that conflict with my work, and contribute a large sum to the bachelorette party she's organizing in a city I can't afford to travel to. Every time I voice my concerns or suggest alternatives, she responds with guilt trips or insinuates that I'm being unreasonable or unsupportive. Things reached a tipping point last month. Emily told me that our parents think I'm emotionally abusive for refusing to bend to her every whim. She then sent me a message outlining a list of tasks for me to complete, framed as an ultimatum: if you don't do these things, don't expect to be part of my wedding. The list included hosting a pre-wedding brunch at my home, coordinating a weekend-long family outing she planned, and buying several gifts that she deemed essential. At this point, I realized that attending the wedding under her conditions would mean sacrificing my autonomy, finances, and mental health just to appease her. I spoke to my parents about it, hoping for some support or mediation. My father said, "Emily has always been a planner, and we think you should try to go along with her wishes." My mother, usually more understanding, told me, "You should at least make an appearance for family harmony." I explained that I felt manipulated and excluded for years, and that this wedding was the culmination of her controlling behavior. I also mentioned that her demands were unrealistic for me, both financially and emotionally. They didn't argue, but they didn't offer any concrete support either, which made me feel even more alone. After several sleepless nights and deep conversations with my fiancé, I decided to decline being part of the wedding entirely. I sent Emily a carefully worded message. I congratulated her, wished her a wonderful day, and explained that I wouldn't be attending. I framed it in terms of self-care and maintaining boundaries, emphasizing that my absence wasn't about a lack of love, but about protecting my mental health. I thought this would be received with at least some understanding, given the history, but I was wrong. Emily exploded. She texted our entire family and friends group, painting me as the villain. According to her, I refused to support her big day out of spite and chose my own selfish needs over family. Our parents have been calling me nonstop, trying to convince me to change my mind, saying things like, "It's one day, you can deal with it," or "Don't let your pride ruin family memories." I've stayed firm, but the guilt is intense. I love my family, and I hate that this decision has created such a rift, but I also feel that giving in would reinforce a cycle of control and resentment that has defined my relationship with Emily for years. Now, some extended family members are taking sides. Some completely support my decision, citing Emily's behavior as controlling and toxic. Others think I'm overreacting and should swallow my pride for the sake of the wedding. I keep questioning myself. Am I being too harsh? Could I have handled it differently? Or is refusing to participate the only way to assert my boundaries without sacrificing my mental health? I know weddings are emotional and symbolic, but I also know my history with Emily is complicated and painful. I don't want to regret protecting myself, but I also don't want to be perceived as the villain in everyone's eyes. The tension has already strained my relationship with my parents, and I'm scared it could have long-term consequences for our family dynamic. I haven't spoken to Emily since I declined, and I honestly don't know if I ever will. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after years of being manipulated, guilt-tripped, and excluded by her? Or is this a justified act of self-preservation? AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices and causing a family rift? AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices and causing a massive family rift? I, 32F, have always considered myself fairly laid back, but recent events have really pushed me to my limits. I've been struggling with whether I acted appropriately or completely overstepped boundaries. My sister, Emma, 29F, has 2 children, ages 6 and 3. She's always been a free-spirited parent, which is fine in theory, but over the years I've noticed a lot of behaviors that worry me. For instance, she often lets the kids skip meals, refuses to enforce bedtime consistently, and has a habit of buying them gifts or treats as a bribe to avoid tantrums rather than addressing underlying issues. I've tried to offer advice gently over the years, but it was always dismissed. She would say, "Don't worry, I know my kids," or "You just don't understand modern parenting." Our family has always been close-knit, so my concerns were mostly limited to our private conversations. However, last Christmas, I stayed at her house with my husband and our daughter for a week. It quickly became clear that some of the behaviors I had quietly been observing were more extreme than I had thought. Her children were constantly getting into things they shouldn't, One of them was running around late at night unsupervised, and her youngest had been left alone in the backyard while she took a long phone call indoors. I felt unsafe seeing this firsthand. One night, after her kids were asleep, I tried to bring it up casually. I said, "Emma, I'm a little worried about how you handle bedtime and meals. Maybe the kids need a more consistent routine." She immediately became defensive. She snapped at me, saying, "I don't need your parenting advice. My kids are happy and healthy. You're being judgmental." I tried to de-escalate, but she kept insisting that I was overstepping. The next day, there was an incident that made me lose my patience. Her 6-year-old, Max, had taken a small toy from my daughter without asking. I reminded Emma politely to intervene, but she shrugged it off and said, "He'll learn eventually." Later that afternoon, Max was roughhousing with my daughter and accidentally caused her to fall and scrape her knee. She cried, and while Emma fussed over him a bit, she didn't seem concerned about my daughter beyond a cursory, "She'll be fine." I lost my temper. I told her, "This isn't okay. You can't just ignore safety or use the 'they'll learn eventually' line when it comes to your children or other people's kids. Your parenting style is putting them and others at risk." My husband tried to calm me down, but I felt strongly that I couldn't stay silent any longer. Emma reacted explosively. She yelled, called me judgmental and controlling, and accused me of undermining her authority as a parent. I tried to explain that my concerns came from a place of care and that I wasn't trying to control her, but she refused to hear me. That night, she blocked me on social media and hasn't spoken to me since. Our parents are furious at me, saying that I humiliated Emma and should have minded my own business. Even my husband is uncomfortable, though he understands why I spoke up. Now, weeks later, the tension has completely split the family. Our parents won't pressure Emma to reconcile because they think it's my fault. My relationship with my niece and nephew has suffered because Emma won't allow contact. I keep asking myself whether I really crossed a line. On one hand, I feel like I was standing up for safety and advocating for proper boundaries for children. On the other hand, my sister feels attacked and humiliated. I don't want to be the villain in this story, but the silence from my sister and the disapproval from my parents makes me wonder if I truly mishandled it. Should I have approached it differently? Should I have stayed silent, even though I witnessed what I genuinely thought was neglectful behavior? I'm torn because my conscience says I did the right thing by speaking up, but the reality is that our family is fractured because of it. AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices, even though it caused a huge rift in our family. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. So I, 28F, have a younger sister, Emily, 25F. Growing up, Emily and I were very close. We shared everything: secrets, school drama, family arguments, you name it. Our parents divorced when I was 16, and Emily was 13. During that time, I became sort of a second parent to her, helping her with school, supporting her emotionally, and being there whenever she needed me. Because of this, I've always felt a strong protective instinct toward her. Emily met her now fiancé, Kevin, 30M, about 2 years ago. At first, I thought he was fine. He seemed charming, funny, and considerate, but it didn't take long for some red flags to emerge. Initially, it was little things. He'd make offhand remarks that seemed controlling, like questioning why Emily spent time with me or subtly criticizing her career choices. At first, I brushed it off as me being overly sensitive or maybe just sibling paranoia. Things escalated as the relationship continued. Kevin started making more direct comments that were concerning. He would frequently make jokes about my lifestyle or my choices, like my decision not to have children yet, and often mocked my career. Once, at a family dinner, he publicly criticized my apartment for being too messy for a grown woman and laughed when I tried to defend it. Emily seemed uncomfortable at the time, but didn't say much. The tipping point for me was about 6 months ago. I was visiting Emily at her apartment, and Kevin was there. Emily had been complaining about being stressed at work, and Kevin said, "Maybe you're just not cut out for it. I mean, I would have handled it better." That's when I noticed Emily flinch and look down. I asked him why he said that, and he brushed it off, claiming he was just giving advice. I later talked to Emily privately, and she admitted she sometimes feels belittled by him, but doesn't want to start fights because she loves him. Fast forward to now. Emily and Kevin got engaged last fall. My parents are excited, but I've been quietly distressed. When Emily asked me to help plan the wedding, I try to participate, but it's hard when Kevin is involved. He dismisses my suggestions, makes snide remarks, and sometimes even talks over me in front of family. I've told Emily multiple times that I don't feel comfortable around him because of how he treats her and me. She acknowledges it, but says she wants me at the wedding and hopes things won't be awkward. Last week, Emily sent me the final invite. I looked at it and realized I couldn't bring myself to attend. I wrote her a message explaining that I love her, that I want the best for her, but that I cannot in good conscience attend because Kevin's behavior has been consistently toxic, and I don't want to support it by being there. I suggested I could celebrate with her afterward, maybe take her out for a special dinner, but I could not be part of the wedding itself. Emily responded with a very emotional message. She said she was hurt and felt abandoned, accusing me of letting Kevin manipulate me. She said that she understands my concerns, but that she's in love with him and doesn't want my judgment overshadowing her day. My parents are now upset with me, saying I'm overreacting and that Emily is an adult who can make her own decisions. Kevin hasn't said anything directly to me, but has been smiling in my absence, as if he's won. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I want to respect Emily's autonomy. She is an adult, and ultimately, she can make her own choices about her partner. On the other hand, I cannot ignore the way he has treated both of us, and I don't want to be complicit by attending. I worry that showing up would imply that I condone his behavior, which could embolden him or make Emily feel that these dynamics are normal. I have friends who think I'm doing the right thing by setting boundaries, but family keeps insisting I'm being dramatic and cruel. I've tried to frame it as me, protecting myself and maintaining my principles, but Emily sees it as a betrayal. To complicate things further, my parents are pressuring me heavily. They've told me that if I don't attend, I might be estranged from Emily for a long time. My friends suggest that boundaries are necessary, but I keep thinking about the fact that I could be creating a permanent rift. I even considered attending and keeping my distance, but I worry about Emily noticing my discomfort and Kevin twisting it into some sort of validation for his controlling behavior. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I love my sister more than anything, but I cannot stomach supporting the environment Kevin creates. I feel torn between protecting Emily and respecting her autonomy, and the guilt is eating me alive. Has anyone else dealt with family weddings where a partner's toxic behavior made attendance morally complicated? I need perspective because the way my family reacts makes me doubt whether my choice is reasonable. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 29F, have always been close to my younger sister, Emily, 26F. Growing up, we were inseparable, sharing clothes, secrets, and even friends. Our parents divorced when I was 12, and Emily was 9, and I always took on a protective role with her. As adults, we've remained close despite living in different cities, with frequent trips and long phone calls keeping us connected. Emily met her fiancé, Jason, 28M, about 2 years ago. At first, I didn't know much about him, but from what Emily told me, he seemed kind and funny. Over the past year, however, I've started noticing some red flags during family gatherings and video calls. He often interrupts people mid-conversation, makes dismissive comments about my career and achievements, and seems to insist that Emily defers to him in decision-making. I try to give him the benefit of the doubt, thinking it might just be nerves or awkwardness, but the behavior has continued and sometimes escalates. Things came to a head when Emily asked me to help with her wedding planning. I was excited to be involved, as she had always said she wanted me to be her maid of honor. However, I quickly noticed that Jason wanted to control every aspect of the wedding and often overrode Emily's preferences. He would make comments like, "Are you sure you want that? I think this looks cheap," or "Maybe your sister can suggest something else, but I know what's best." At first, I didn't say anything because I didn't want to cause conflict. The first major incident occurred during a dress fitting. Emily had found a dress she loved, and I went with her for support. Jason came along, insisting he wanted to see the dress, which I was okay with initially. However, as soon as Emily tried on the dress, he immediately started criticizing it. "This isn't flattering. You'd look better in something else. I don't want people thinking this is the one." Emily looked upset, but Jason kept talking over her, ignoring her preferences entirely. I tried to step in and remind him that it was Emily's choice, but he brushed me off, saying I was overreacting. Emily ended up leaving the boutique feeling guilty and doubting her decision, which broke my heart. Another instance was at the catering tasting. Jason insisted on tasting everything before Emily, made negative comments about foods Emily liked, and kept suggesting alternatives that she hadn't even asked for. When Emily tried to assert herself, he would sigh loudly and make sarcastic remarks. I noticed she started second-guessing herself more and more. I mentioned to her that she shouldn't feel pressured, but she said she just wanted to keep the peace. Things really escalated when Jason made a joke at a family dinner that I found offensive. We were celebrating Emily's engagement, and Jason said, "It's cute that she thinks she's independent. We all know she'll just follow my lead." Everyone laughed awkwardly, but I was uncomfortable. I told Emily later that I thought it was inappropriate, and she laughed it off, saying he was just joking. I wasn't sure if she really felt that way, or if she was trying to keep everyone calm. About a month ago, Emily asked me if I could help her with the seating chart. I sat down with her, ready to spend hours sorting out tables, when Jason interrupted constantly, suggesting I move people around his way. He was dismissive of Emily's friends and family, and even started arguing with me directly. When I tried to stand my ground, he told me, "You're just making this harder than it needs to be. I know better." I was shocked, and Emily looked uncomfortable but didn't say anything. At this point, I started to feel anxious about the wedding. I had been looking forward to being part of her special day, but Jason's controlling behavior was overshadowing everything. I tried to talk to Emily about it, but she told me she loved him and didn't want to hear negative comments about her fiancé. I understood her perspective, but I also couldn't ignore how he treated both her and me. 2 weeks ago, I had a major confrontation with Jason. Emily had been showing me a list of vendors she liked, and Jason stormed in and started criticizing every single one. I calmly told him that it was Emily's decision and that I supported her. He became aggressive, saying I was being disrespectful and that Emily didn't need me interfering. I stayed calm and left, feeling frustrated and anxious. When I told Emily what happened later, she said I had overreacted and that Jason was just stressed. I couldn't understand how anyone could think it was okay to talk to someone like that. After much thought, I made a decision. I told Emily that I could not attend the wedding. I explained that I could not support a situation where her fiancé consistently disregards her feelings and disrespects the people she loves. Emily was devastated and begged me to reconsider, saying she didn't want me to miss her wedding and that Jason would behave himself on the day. I explained that it wasn't just about the wedding. It was about the pattern of behavior that I found unacceptable. She became very upset, saying I was making her choose between her fiancé and me. Since then, family members have been divided. Some say I'm overreacting and ruining Emily's day, while others privately tell me they've noticed Jason's behavior too and understand why I can't be present. Emily hasn't spoken much to me, except for a few texts expressing her disappointment. I feel torn because I love my sister and I want to support her, but I also feel that attending would implicitly condone the way Jason treats her. I don't want to be part of a situation where I feel anxious and upset, and I also don't want Emily to think I approve of disrespectful behavior. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she lost her job. AITA for not letting my sister move back in with me after she lost her job. This situation has completely divided my family, and I honestly don't know if I'm in the wrong here. So I'm turning to this community for some perspective. A little background. I'm 32, married to my husband, Mark, 34, and we have 2 kids, ages 6 and 4. My sister, Jenna, is 29 and has always been a bit unstable in terms of employment and finances. She's had a string of short-term jobs over the past few years, often leaving abruptly or being fired. I'm not exaggerating when I say she's moved in and out of our house at least 4 times in the last decade. Each time, it started with promises that she'd get her life together, contribute financially, and be responsible, but it usually ends with me stressing about bills, chores, and the kids' safety. Last month, Jenna called me in tears. She'd been working at a boutique for the past year, but her boss let her go after a disagreement over scheduling. She told me she had nowhere to go because her apartment lease was ending, and she was desperate. My first instinct was to feel for her because losing a job is stressful, and I get that she needed support. However, I immediately remembered the chaos that had ensued every previous time she lived with us. I told her honestly that I was worried about letting her move back in. I explained that the last time, she stayed for 6 months without paying rent, contributed minimally to groceries, and often left dirty dishes and laundry for me to deal with. I also mentioned that my kids' routines are now very structured, and she tends to be disruptive. She got defensive, saying I was exaggerating and that I had nothing to worry about this time. I tried to negotiate a compromise, suggesting she look into short-term rentals or stay with another relative while she gets back on her feet. I even offered to help her search for jobs and temporary housing. Jenna didn't like any of that. She insisted that my house was the only place she could go, that Mark and I owed her because I had moved back in with our parents after college when I was struggling, and that I should just be the big sister and help her out. I stood firm, explaining that times had changed. I have my own family and responsibilities now, and I couldn't put my kids and marriage through that kind of strain again. She accused me of being selfish, heartless, and abandoning her in her time of need. The conflict escalated over the next few days. She started texting our parents and my extended family, telling them that I was turning my back on my family and choosing my marriage over my own sister. Some of my relatives sided with her, saying I should just let her stay for a couple of weeks. Others understood my position, but suggested I could try to make some compromise, like having her pay a nominal rent or limit her stay. I didn't think even a temporary stay would be manageable. She tends to overstay and resist rules, and I didn't want to create tension in my household. Eventually, I received a text from Jenna saying she'd figure something out and left my house alone. She's now staying at a friend's place temporarily, but our family gatherings are tense. My parents are disappointed in me. My siblings have been passive-aggressive, and my husband is frustrated with the stress it has caused. Jenna has stopped speaking to me directly and is only communicating through our parents. Since this happened, I've reflected a lot on whether I could have handled things differently. I know she's going through a rough time, and part of me feels guilty for not stepping in. On the other hand, I've learned from past experiences that giving in often leads to more problems than it solves. I also have to consider my own family's well-being. My kids have routines, my marriage needs boundaries, and our household isn't equipped to absorb the chaos of another adult indefinitely. I've offered practical help, job searching, helping with resumes, even providing references, but she wants immediate housing and emotional support. What complicates things is that my family sees this as a moral obligation rather than a practical concern. They argue that I'm capable of helping her temporarily, that Mark and I don't know what struggle is, and that I'm letting my sister down. I tried explaining that helping someone doesn't always mean letting them move in, but they think I'm being harsh and inflexible. I understand their perspective, but I also feel like I'm being unfairly judged for protecting my family. I don't want to ruin my relationship with my sister completely, but I also don't want to compromise my household stability. I've been firm but polite, and I've set clear boundaries. The question I'm grappling with is whether I should have let her move in despite my concerns, or if I did the right thing by standing my ground. I genuinely want to help her, but I feel like moving her into my home would create more harm than good. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she lost her job. I want to know if I'm being too rigid or if my concerns for my family are valid in this situation. I'm torn between guilt and relief, and I don't know which side of the moral line I fall on here. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her choice of bridesmaids. AITA for standing my ground when my sister's decision hurt my feelings and caused a family rift? This situation has been building for years, and I still feel torn about whether I overreacted. I, 28F, have a younger sister, Mia, 25F. Growing up, we were extremely close. We shared friends, hobbies, and even a room for a period of time. Mia and I have always had a bit of a competitive streak, but I never thought it would escalate to the point it has. Over the past few years, things started to shift. Mia has a very particular way of seeing social hierarchies, and while I try to overlook some of her more controlling tendencies, the latest situation really pushed me over the edge. Mia got engaged about 8 months ago, and from the start, she mentioned wanting a cohesive bridesmaid group. She emphasized appearance, personality type, and even social media presence. I was initially supportive because I wanted her to have her dream wedding. She invited her best friend from college, 2 co-workers she's very close with, and 1 family member outside of me, her cousin, who I don't know well. I waited to hear my own invitation, but it never came. After weeks of awkwardness, I asked her directly if I would be a bridesmaid, and she told me she hadn't included me because she wanted friends who reflect the vibe of the wedding. I asked her what that meant, and she essentially said she didn't want someone who might cause drama or be negative at the wedding. I was blindsided because we have never had any serious arguments in public or at family events. I asked for clarification, and she admitted that she felt my personality didn't fit the image she wanted for her wedding aesthetic. She also mentioned that my social media style was too different from hers and that she didn't want clashing personalities in her wedding photos. I was furious and hurt. I tried reasoning with her, explaining that I've been her sister my whole life, and this felt exclusionary and petty. She told me she was only considering her wedding and that she couldn't compromise her vision. I reminded her that family bonds should matter more than superficial appearances, but she dismissed this and accused me of overreacting. After this conversation, I decided I could not be a part of the wedding in any capacity if my presence made her uncomfortable. I informed her that I would not attend as a guest either. My parents were extremely disappointed. They begged me to reconsider and to not make a mountain out of a molehill. They said my absence would cause unnecessary tension and that Mia might feel hurt by my choice not to attend. I explained that it wasn't just about me being a bridesmaid. It was about feeling that my sister was rejecting me publicly over aesthetics and superficial preferences. My parents said they understood my feelings, but still encouraged me to go for the sake of family peace. The tension escalated when I sent a message to Mia outlining my feelings. I told her that I felt deeply hurt, excluded, and undervalued, and that attending her wedding would feel performative and insincere given her words. She responded angrily, saying I was trying to guilt her and that I should respect her choices. She even called me self-centered and accused me of throwing a tantrum over a simple decision. After weeks of back and forth, I stayed firm and told my parents and extended family that I would not attend. Some relatives supported my decision, acknowledging that Mia's reasoning seemed shallow and that I was justified in feeling hurt. Others think I overreacted and that I should rise above it. Some have even suggested that I write a formal apology to Mia and show up anyway. It's been months since the engagement announcement, and our relationship has deteriorated. Mia refuses to speak to me except for family gatherings where tension is palpable. I've tried reaching out to her a few times with messages, emphasizing that I love her and that I hope we can reconcile, but she hasn't responded. I don't want to escalate things further or cause a huge family fight, but I also can't pretend that everything is okay when I feel this deeply hurt. My friends are divided. Some say I should have swallowed my pride for the sake of the wedding and family harmony. Others say I did the right thing by standing up for myself and not letting my sister treat me as disposable based on looks or social media presence. I still feel conflicted. I want to maintain a healthy relationship with Mia, but I also feel that her actions and words were dismissive and hurtful enough that I can't just brush them aside. I'm trying to focus on boundaries, but the looming wedding and my absence there have become a significant family issue. So AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because she excluded me as a bridesmaid for superficial reasons, and now her family is upset with me for standing my ground. AITA for refusing to help my sister financially after she made a huge mistake. I, 32F, have always had a complicated relationship with my sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were close, but as we got older, our differences became more pronounced. I am financially stable, work a good job as a software engineer, and I've been careful with my finances. Emily, on the other hand, has always been more impulsive and less responsible when it comes to money. Over the years, I've lent her small amounts for emergencies, but always with the understanding that she would pay me back. This has rarely gone smoothly. Last year, Emily started dating someone new. Let's call him Mark, 30M. I had my reservations about him from the start. He seemed charming, but also a bit manipulative. Emily, as usual, dismissed my concerns, saying I was just overprotective. Things escalated quickly, and within 6 months, she moved in with him. I didn't get involved, but I kept a cautious eye on the situation. About 2 months ago, Emily called me in tears. She explained that Mark had convinced her to co-sign a loan for a business opportunity he found, claiming it was a guaranteed way to make money fast. Emily said she didn't have the full details and trusted him blindly. The total amount was $50,000, a sum that would be difficult for her to repay on her own, but even more so because she had quit her job to focus on the business. I was shocked, and I told her to stop, to think carefully, and not to sign anything until she had all the information. She didn't listen. A week later, she called again, frantic. The loan had been processed, and now she was being harassed by collectors. She begged me to help her cover part of the debt. I told her no. I explained that lending her tens of thousands was not something I could or would do. I also reminded her that I had warned her repeatedly and that she had made her own choices. She was devastated and accused me of not caring about her, saying that family should help each other no matter what. Things got worse. Emily started showing up at my apartment unannounced, leaving notes, and even sending me messages on social media asking for money. She insisted that I owed her because I had a better job and more resources. I tried to explain that helping her now would just enable her behavior and could even harm my own financial stability. She became increasingly angry, calling me selfish and heartless. Our parents are aware of the situation but are largely neutral, telling both of us to figure out. My friends have given mixed advice. Some say I should help her because she's family. Others agree with me that she needs to learn accountability. The breaking point came 2 weeks ago. Emily demanded that I either co-sign a smaller loan to cover part of her debt or lend her $20,000 outright. I said absolutely not. She screamed at me, told me I was abandoning her, and left in tears. I haven't spoken to her since, but I've heard from mutual friends that she has been telling people I am cold and unsupportive. I feel terrible because I hate seeing her struggle, but I also can't ignore that this situation is of her own making. I've always been responsible and careful with money, and I've learned from my mistakes. I can't risk my own financial security to bail her out, especially when she has repeatedly ignored my advice. I've considered offering non-financial help, like helping her create a budget, find a job, or negotiate with the lenders, but every time I mention it, she refuses and insists she needs cash. I feel trapped between wanting to help my sister and not wanting to enable destructive behavior. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to lend my sister tens of thousands of dollars after she made a huge financial mistake. I'm torn because I love her, but I also feel like letting her face the consequences is the responsible choice. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after learning about her groom. I, 32F, have a complicated relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 28F. Growing up, we were extremely close. She was my shadow, following me around and seeking my advice for almost everything. Over the years, however, as we both became adults, our bond has been tested by jealousy, differing lifestyles, and family dynamics. Our parents, who have always favored Emily in subtle ways, didn't help either. But despite all that, I have always tried to support her, especially during significant life events. Last year, Emily started dating a man named Jason, 35M. She was excited but also cautious because of her past relationships, which were mostly short-term and problematic. From what I gathered, Jason seemed charming, successful, and respectful. at least on the surface. Emily and Jason got serious quickly and announced their engagement just 6 months after dating. While I had some reservations, I trusted Emily's judgment. Things started to make me uneasy shortly after the engagement. I went to Emily's apartment for a casual brunch, and Jason was there. He seemed nice at first, polite and well-mannered, but as the morning progressed, I noticed little things that unsettled me. He made subtle jokes about Emily's career, dismissing her achievements, and seemed to dominate the conversation whenever I visited. Emily laughed him off, saying he was just teasing. I brushed it off as nerves, thinking first impressions can be misleading. Over the next few months, I observed Jason more closely, both online and through our interactions. I noticed patterns that I found concerning. He had a history of being controlling in past relationships, which was evident from mutual friends I spoke to discreetly. There were vague mentions of emotional manipulation, which alarmed me because Emily is very independent and values her freedom. I debated whether to bring this up with Emily, but hesitated, fearing she would see it as me interfering in her personal life. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. Emily invited me to a family dinner to meet Jason's parents. I had hoped to build a cordial relationship with them, but during the evening, Jason's behavior escalated. He repeatedly interrupted Emily, spoke over her, and at one point, openly criticized her for spending money on a hobby he deemed frivolous. It was subtle enough that others didn't notice immediately, but I saw Emily's discomfort. I tried to intervene lightly, but Jason brushed me off with a patronizing smile. After that dinner, Emily seemed unusually distant with me. I confronted her privately and expressed my concerns about Jason's behavior. I told her that I had researched his past relationships and that I was worried about her emotional well-being. Emily immediately became defensive, accusing me of trying to control her choices and disrespecting her judgment. She said that Jason loved her, that I was misinterpreting things, and that I should mind my own business. I felt hurt because I had tried to approach the matter delicately, without attacking Jason personally. 2 weeks later, Emily officially sent out wedding invitations. I received mine along with a note from our mother encouraging me to put aside differences for the sake of family. I was conflicted. On one hand, I wanted to support my sister. On the other hand, attending the wedding felt like endorsing a relationship I strongly believed was harmful. I spoke to my husband, Mark, 34M, who advised me to consider my own boundaries. He reminded me that standing up for what I think is right is not the same as being unsupportive, especially if my presence could enable someone potentially toxic. I tried to reason with Emily one last time. I explained that I couldn't in good conscience celebrate her marriage while believing Jason might emotionally harm her. I emphasized that my decision wasn't about hating him, but about protecting my own integrity and expressing care for her well-being. Emily was furious. She accused me of trying to sabotage her happiness, told me I was selfish, and said I would regret missing one of the most important days of her life. She also mentioned that our parents were disappointed in me, implying that family unity was more important than my concerns. I ultimately sent Emily a polite message declining the invitation, expressing my love for her but stating that I couldn't attend. I offered to spend time together before the wedding, so she knew I still cared. The response I received was icy. Emily said she didn't want to talk to me until after the wedding, and our parents have largely stopped communicating with me, viewing me as the troublemaker who ruined the atmosphere. Extended family have started asking questions, some expressing subtle judgment that I should have just gone to support her. Since then, I've been feeling a mix of guilt and relief. Guilt, because I love my sister and I'm missing a milestone in her life. Relief, because I trust my instincts and don't want to be in an environment that feels morally compromising to me. I have tried to keep lines of communication open, sending messages to wish Emily happiness and reminding her I love her, but she hasn't replied. I am now caught in a storm of family disapproval, and I keep wondering if I am overreacting or being unnecessarily harsh. My husband supports me, but I feel isolated in my decision. I understand that people might say I should have attended regardless of my personal opinions, but part of me believes that attending would be a betrayal of my values and a tacit endorsement of behavior I genuinely think could hurt my sister. So, Reddit AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I believe her fiancé is controlling and potentially harmful? Or should I just put aside my concerns for one day and be there to support her, even if it goes against my conscience? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior? I, 29F, have always had a close relationship with my younger sister, Emily, 26F. We grew up in a small town, shared a room until I went to college, and have been each other's confidants through every major life event. When Emily started dating Tom, 30M, about 3 years ago, I tried to be supportive. At first, everything seemed fine. Tom was charming, funny, and seemed genuinely kind. But over time, his behavior toward me and other family members started to raise red flags. It started subtly. During family gatherings, Tom would make passive-aggressive comments under the guise of jokes. Once at my birthday dinner, he remarked, "Wow, you've really let yourself go since college." Everyone laughed awkwardly, but I could feel the sting. I brushed it off, thinking maybe he didn't know me well enough yet. Then, during the holidays, he began belittling my accomplishments. I work as a software engineer, and he would often say things like, "Oh, so you fix computers all day? That must be thrilling." It felt like he was trying to undermine me in front of the family. The more time went on, the more controlling and manipulative he appeared. He tried to dictate what Emily wore, where she could go, and even who she could hang out with. When I expressed concern, Emily would tell me I was overreacting or being dramatic. She loves Tom and says he makes her happy, so I tried to respect her choices. I didn't want to create unnecessary tension. Things escalated when Emily got engaged. She announced it at Christmas, and of course, the family was thrilled. I congratulated her sincerely, but Tom immediately started hinting that my attendance at the wedding would be optional, suggesting I might be a drama magnet. I ignored it at the time, assuming he was joking. But over the next few months, his behavior toward me intensified. He criticized my outfit choices when I came over, made sarcastic remarks about my career, and even tried to isolate Emily from me during visits. The turning point came when he mocked me at a family dinner in front of both of our parents. He laughed at something personal I had confided in Emily, and when I confronted him, he said I was being too sensitive and needed thicker skin. By this point, I was feeling increasingly uncomfortable. I confided in a few friends and even sought advice from therapists who validated that Tom's behavior was manipulative and emotionally abusive. I started documenting incidents and carefully consider my options. I want to support my sister, but I also needed to protect my own mental health. The wedding plans were moving forward, and Emily asked me to help with some of the preparations. I agreed to assist remotely with small tasks like addressing invitations and helping with the seating chart. During one phone call, she mentioned that Tom had said he didn't want me to be part of the bridal party because it would be awkward. I was shocked. I tried to reason with Emily, explaining that his behavior was inappropriate and that I deserved to be treated with respect. She insisted that she loved him and didn't want to cause drama. A month before the wedding, Emily sent me a message saying she expected me to attend, but that Tom had laid down some rules. No private conversations with guests about him, no staying over the night before with other family members, and essentially, I would have to tiptoe around him the entire day. I realized that attending under those conditions would be emotionally exhausting and could potentially escalate tensions. I decided to decline. I wrote a long message explaining that I loved Emily and wanted her to have a beautiful wedding, but I could not attend because Tom's behavior toward me was harmful, and I needed to prioritize my well-being. The response was immediate and intense. Emily was heartbroken and accused me of being selfish and sabotaging her big day. Tom chimed in, claiming I was creating unnecessary conflict and that I should just get over my insecurities. My parents were caught in the middle. My mom said she understood my perspective but hoped I would reconsider, emphasizing family unity. My dad, however, felt I was overreacting and pressured me to attend, saying it was just a wedding and I was making it about myself. I stood firm, refusing to compromise my boundaries. Since then, family gatherings have been tense. Emily has distanced herself from me, though she occasionally sends curt messages. Tom seems to enjoy having this wedge between us. Other relatives have expressed mixed feelings. Some understand my position, while others think I should have swallowed my pride for one day. I am struggling with guilt because I know this is a major milestone for my sister, but I also know that attending would likely lead to humiliation and emotional distress. I have tried to maintain communication with Emily in other ways, sending gifts and notes, but she barely acknowledges them. I worry that our relationship may be permanently damaged. I also question whether I should have made more compromises to preserve family harmony. At the same time, I recognize that setting boundaries is important and that attending would not have resolved the underlying issues with Tom. I am left wondering if I am wrong for refusing to attend my sister's wedding. I love her deeply and want her to be happy, but I cannot ignore the way Tom treats me. Am I overreacting, or am I justified in prioritizing my mental health over attending the wedding? I feel trapped between my desire to support my sister and my need to protect myself, and it's causing me a lot of emotional turmoil. So, AITA for choosing not to attend Emily's wedding because of her fiancé's behavior. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister's boyfriend stay at my house after he caused a huge scene during our family dinner. So I, 32F, have a younger sister, Lily, 28F, who has been dating her boyfriend, Mark, 30M, for about a year now. Up until recently, things were fine between us, but the past few months have been rocky due to some very concerning behavior I've noticed from Mark. The other night, my parents invited the whole family over for dinner at my house. I had spent the entire day preparing, from cooking a roast to making side dishes and desserts. Everything was set, and I wanted it to be a calm, happy evening. Lily brought Mark along, which I didn't mind initially. I've always tried to be welcoming, but I was already a little wary because Mark has a history of getting defensive when confronted and can be extremely loud and argumentative. Dinner started off okay, with casual chatter and some teasing about family habits. But about 30 minutes in, the conversation somehow shifted to politics. Now, I try to avoid political debates during family dinners because I know my dad is very opinionated and my mom tries to keep things neutral. Mark, however, immediately started criticizing almost everything my dad said in a way that was sarcastic and condescending. I politely suggested changing the topic, but he brushed me off, saying he was just sharing his perspective. It quickly escalated. My dad, trying to remain calm, asked Mark to maybe not lecture him in his own house. That's when Mark snapped. He raised his voice, calling my dad out of touch and saying he didn't understand the world. My dad, who is generally very patient, was visibly upset, and my mom tried to intervene by asking Mark to calm down. Instead, Mark accused her of enabling old ideas and got even louder. I finally stood up and told Mark that if he couldn't speak respectfully, he would have to leave. That's when he started yelling at me too, saying I was overreacting and playing favorites because I was siding with my parents. He stormed out of the room, slammed the door, and went outside. I told Lily that this behavior was unacceptable in my home, and she immediately got defensive, insisting that Mark was just passionate and I was being unreasonable. After dinner, Mark tried to come back in and continue the argument. I told him again that he was not welcome in my house unless he could behave respectfully. At that point, Lily started crying, saying I was being mean and controlling, and that I was trying to sabotage her relationship. My parents supported me privately, saying they agreed that Mark's behavior was inappropriate, but they were also concerned about Lily's reaction because she clearly loved him and was deeply upset. Since that night, Lily has been avoiding me, sending me messages accusing me of being selfish and unfair. Mark has sent a couple of texts too, calling me hostile and claiming I humiliate him in front of the family. I have not responded to him. My parents think I did the right thing by standing up to him, but they also think I should try to mend things with Lily. Here's where it gets tricky. Mark has started asking Lily to come stay with him at my house when he visits town. Lily told me she expects me to allow him to stay, and when I said absolutely not, she accused me of being controlling again. She's threatening not to visit me at all if I don't change my mind. I feel torn because I don't want to escalate the conflict, but I also don't want to compromise my boundaries or allow someone who disrespected me and my family to stay in my home. Friends I've spoken to mostly support me, saying I shouldn't have to host someone who was aggressive and rude, but I'm feeling guilty because it's causing a major rift between me and my sister. Lily keeps saying that family should forgive and give people second chances, and she believes I'm overreacting by holding Mark accountable for his behavior. I want my house to feel safe and comfortable, not like a battlefield where someone can yell at my family with impunity. At the same time, I don't want to lose my sister over this, but I also don't think allowing Mark to stay is compromising that. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's boyfriend stay at my house after he caused a huge scene during our family dinner. AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices and facing backlash from my entire family. AITA here. I feel like I'm stuck in this impossible situation with my family, and I honestly don't know if I'm the asshole. I'll try to explain everything as clearly as possible. I, 34M, have a younger sister, Emma, 29F. Emma has 2 kids, a 5-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. For context, I've always been close with my sister, and I've spent a lot of time helping her out, especially since our parents live across the country. I don't live with her, but I visit often and try to help with the kids whenever I can. I love my niece and nephew, but lately, the way my sister is raising them has really concerned me. Here's where the story gets messy. Emma has always been somewhat unconventional in her parenting approach. She believes in very free-range and child-led techniques, which I respect in theory. However, in practice, it often seems like her children are running the house and making decisions that I feel are completely unsafe or inappropriate. For example, her daughter has started wandering into the street by herself multiple times when they're at the park, even when Emma is standing just a few feet away. I've seen her toddler son climb on furniture that's clearly not meant for climbing and almost fall. When I bring it up, Emma dismisses my concerns and says that kids need to explore and learn from their mistakes. I completely understand the value of independence, but there's a difference between letting a child explore and putting them in harm's way. The tipping point came last weekend. Emma asked me to watch the kids for a few hours while she ran some errands. I agreed because I like spending time with them, and I felt it was a normal favor between siblings. When I arrived, I noticed the kids were eating snacks that I wouldn't normally give them, lots of sugary candy and soda, because Emma said she didn't want to fight about it. I let it slide, thinking it wasn't a big deal for a few hours. Later, while we were playing outside, her daughter wandered off toward the street again. I ran after her, grabbed her, and explained calmly that she couldn't go near the road. Her son was also climbing on a low fence that separates the yard from the alley. I pulled him down and told him to stay in the yard. When Emma came back, I mentioned what happened. I tried to be diplomatic, saying that I understand her parenting philosophy, but that I was genuinely worried for the kids' safety. I suggested some boundaries that could make things safer without being overly restrictive. Emma completely lost it. She accused me of undermining her authority and said I was acting like a helicopter uncle who couldn't trust her to raise her kids. She said I had no right to tell her how to parent and that I was overreacting. I tried to stay calm, but I told her honestly that I felt scared for the children and that I couldn't stay silent if I saw them in dangerous situations. After our argument, she texted our parents and told them I was interfering in her family. When I called them to explain my perspective, both my mom and dad sided with her, saying that it's not my place to tell her how to raise her kids. Even my other sister, who normally is neutral, told me I should mind my own business. I feel like I'm stuck because I genuinely love my niece and nephew, and I'm worried about them, but my family seems to think I overstepped. I don't want to ruin my relationship with Emma or the rest of my family, but I also feel like if I stay silent, I'm ignoring the potential for serious harm. Since then, there's been a lot of tension. Emma barely speaks to me, my parents have been cold, and I've been questioning whether I did the right thing. I keep thinking about the near misses with the kids and wondering if I'm just overreacting or if I really did have a duty to intervene. I know this is complicated. On one hand, I respect that parents have a right to make their own choices, and I've tried to express my concerns without being judgmental. On the other hand, I keep seeing situations that feel unsafe or neglectful, and I can't ignore them. I'm torn between stepping back to preserve family relationships and standing up because I genuinely think the kids' well-being is at risk. So, AITA for confronting my sister about her parenting choices even though it has caused a rift with my entire family? Or should I have just stayed quiet and let her handle things her way, even if I don't agree? I genuinely don't know where the line is between concern and interference, and it's been eating at me ever since. The tension is affecting everyone. I've offered to go to family counseling or mediation, but Emma refuses, saying that no one has the right to lecture her on parenting. My parents have suggested that I just accept her methods and not visit as often if I can't handle it, which feels like they're punishing me for trying to protect their grandchildren. I've thought about alternative approaches, like leaving educational materials or suggesting safety classes in a non-confrontational way, but I feel like anything I do will be interpreted as criticism. It's exhausting and heartbreaking because I just want my niece and nephew to be safe while still respecting my sister's role as their mother. I guess I'm looking for perspective. Am I truly overstepping here? Or is it reasonable to express concern when children's safety is involved, even if it upsets the parent? I've tried to handle it as gently as possible, but my family's response has been overwhelmingly negative, and now I'm questioning myself. I know this is long, but I want to give as much context as possible. I really don't want to create a permanent rift, but I also can't ignore situations that could seriously harm the children. So, AITA? AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering her fiancé's past? I, 29F, have always been close to my older sister, Laura, 33F. Growing up, we were inseparable. She was the fun, fearless older sibling, and I was the cautious, thoughtful one. Over the years, we went through a lot together. Family crises, college graduations, even supporting each other through breakups. Recently, she got engaged to a man named Greg, 35M. On the surface, he seemed perfect, charming, successful, and seemingly genuinely in love with my sister. Everyone in the family adored him. The problem started when I began noticing little things that felt off. At first, it was just my intuition, little inconsistencies in the stories she told me about him or slight evasions when I asked about his previous relationships. I tried to dismiss it, thinking I might be overreacting. But then a friend of mine, who works in a field that occasionally crosses paths with law enforcement, mentioned casually that Greg had a record for fraud and that it was not just a minor incident, but a series of financial scams. At first, I didn't believe it. I did some research on my own and, indeed, found publicly available records confirming my friend's claim. Greg had been convicted multiple times over the past decade for financial crimes, including identity theft and embezzlement. I was shocked. Laura had never mentioned any of this, and he never had to because he seemed so convincing. I struggled with what to do. I didn't want to ruin my sister's happiness if this was all in the past, and he had genuinely changed, but I couldn't ignore the evidence either. I decided to approach her gently. I sent her a message asking if we could talk in private. While I confronted her, I tried to stay calm and factual. I explained what I had learned about Greg's history and asked her if she knew about it. Her reaction was not what I expected. She immediately became defensive, accusing me of trying to sabotage our relationship. She insisted that Greg had changed, that he had paid his dues, and that I was unfairly judging him for mistakes he had made years ago. I tried to reason with her, but she refused to listen. Things escalated when she started texting me during the wedding planning process, insisting that I attend and play my part as her maid of honor. I told her I was uncomfortable being around someone who had committed serious crimes, even if she believed he had changed. She exploded, calling me selfish, controlling, and even saying that I was trying to make her wedding about me. She argued that my refusal would ruin her special day and make me seem like the bad sibling. I reached out to my parents for advice. They were torn. My mom said I was overreacting and that Greg seemed like a nice guy now. My dad admitted he had some reservations, but said that confronting my sister further might permanently damage our relationship. I felt trapped. The closer the wedding got, the more pressure I felt from my family to attend. My sister even started sending mutual friends subtle messages, trying to guilt them into telling me to just come for a big day. After several weeks of stress and sleepless nights, I made my decision. I wrote Laura a detailed message explaining that while I loved her, I could not in good conscience attend her wedding knowing what I know about Greg. I told her it was not about me wanting to ruin her day, but about my own ethical boundaries and discomfort. I also stated that I would support her in other ways, like helping with decorations or planning, as long as it didn't involve being present with Greg. Her response was brutal. She called me manipulative, claiming that I was making her feel unsafe in her own wedding. She blocked me on social media and told my parents that I was being unreasonable. Some family members sided with her, saying I should forgive and forget because he was different now. Others quietly told me they understood my hesitation but didn't want to confront her themselves. I feel isolated and guilty. I miss my sister terribly, and I worry about our relationship long term. On the other hand, I feel I made the right choice by prioritizing my own principles. I can't shake the thought that attending the wedding would make me complicit in ignoring his past behavior, and I can't respect myself if I pretend to be comfortable with that. The wedding passed last month, and I did not attend. I've only had minimal contact with Laura since then, mostly text about family matters, nothing personal. She hasn't reached out beyond that, and I don't know if our relationship will ever be the same. Some of my friends think I overreacted, while others say I was justified. So, AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because I discovered her fiancé's criminal past and felt I couldn't morally be present for the event. I want to be clear, I am not trying to ruin her happiness. I just cannot reconcile celebrating with someone who has done things that I find morally reprehensible, regardless of whether he has supposedly changed. I'm also deeply conflicted about how to rebuild my relationship with her, if possible, without compromising my own ethical standards. I'm open to suggestions on whether I overstepped or if my decision was reasonable. I also want to understand how others might navigate a situation where family loyalty clashes with personal ethics and comfort. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.